My name is Shiva. I'm the technical solutions architect at Hycu. I've been with the company for actually 4 years now. It's one of the most exciting times to be a part of Hycu. The reason is because it's a young company. We've been developing a lot of capabilities that are very relevant to cloud-based workloads, and that is exactly what I'm here to talk about, like what we may deliver, especially for customers who are on Azure, Google Cloud, and AWS. So with that being said, let's get started. One of the key things that I wanted to talk about, especially when it comes to customers that we have worked with, be it on AWS, Azure, or on Google Cloud, one of the common data protection challenges that we have seen, especially when they're moving from, or when they move their workloads from on-prem to a public cloud, is the nature of unrealized cost savings. Because there is this very reason why customers always move to a public cloud infrastructure to save time and energy that is required to manage your hardware infrastructure, your data centers that are basically like your daily chores that was very relevant during your on-prem environment, but during the course of your on-prem environment. But once you move to the cloud, all those daily chores are supposed to go away. But that is pretty much not the case, especially when you're working with solutions like, or working with data protection solutions, especially when you're trying to deploy contemporary backup and recovery solutions, on Google Cloud or Azure or AWS. You still go through those same painful exercises to manually deploy them, discover your workloads on public cloud, deploy agents and plugins for application consistent backups, and start protecting them, right? So that is one of the first things that we've basically seen a lot of customers go through this. And some of them don't even realize that this is not the way that they're supposed to be doing that on the cloud. Because let's face it, if you're used to doing something like, a very similar exercise on-prem, the kind of similarity when it's being replicated on the cloud, it looks like, well, that's pretty much the norm. But in reality, that is not the case, right? In addition to that, when you have architectures that are not designed for the cloud, when you have backup and recovery solutions that barely supports just the backup and recovery as a checkbox and doesn't have its full grown architecture that is basically not designed for the cloud to match the expanding or shrinking workloads based on the organization's requirement, then again, that's one of the biggest pain points of customers moving, who are already on cloud, because they don't have this ability to truly reap the benefits. And last but not the least, even when customers are on the cloud, one of the most constant concerns is about disaster recovery and ransomware resiliency. Like, how do you go about recovering your workloads if you have any data corruption on your application stack, or if you have any unforeseen cloud outages, or if you have any ransomware attacks? Like, how prepared are organizations when it comes to these unforeseen attacks? And this has been pretty much the constant concerns, not just in on-prem, but also on a public cloud environment. So when we basically try to, suggest when we try to position a modern backup and recovery or a data protection strategy, one of the key points that we try to showcase, or the three key points that we try to highlight with our customers, is to showcase the fact that backups are always, they're meant to be cost effective. They're meant to be cheaper than your production environment. If your backups are, in my opinion, if your backups, or if your backup infrastructure, or if your backup solution is greater than, let's say, 25 to 30% of your production environment's cost, then you're doing something wrong. And I've seen several solutions that are not just beyond that percentage. I've seen solutions that are like even greater than the price point of a production environment, be it on-prem or be it on public cloud. And hybrid cloud will always be a constant, or at least it will be a very, a common situation, at least for, I would say, another 10 to 15 years, because you have a lot of customers who are in the journey of moving their workloads to a public cloud, but they also retain certain workloads in on-prem, and they would basically want to have a single pane of glass to manage their on-prem and public workloads, or public cloud workloads from one single screen. And when it comes to investing or when it comes to moving your workloads to your public cloud environment, remember that it's an investment at the end of the day, right? We can talk about all the flexibility, we can talk about all the simplicity that cloud offers, but at the end of the day, when you're committing yourself to move all of your production workloads to any one of the vendor, it's a huge investment at the end of the day. And and just like your on-prem environment, you also need to look into solutions that has the ability to fully leverage and extract every advantage of your investment on your public cloud infrastructure. And last but not the least, guys, let's face it, backup and recovery data protection is not fun. Right? I mean, it's important. Don't get me wrong; it's very important, and it is basically meant to have, it's basically the part of your core SLAs to keep your organizations up and running. But is it fun? Absolutely not. So what we try to deliver is to fully, deliver a more simplified, intuitive, and automated interface that actually has the ability to fully basically meet all of your data protection SLAs within your public cloud workloads, and ensure that your cloud administrators or cloud architects don't spend any time in managing or maintaining these workloads, and they're fully focused on high value tasks that basically keeps their lives more interesting and more relevant to what they're supposed to be doing, rather than just managing the tools that they're managing the tools that are supposed to make their lives easier. So with that being said, I'd like to quickly introduce about who we are. So our solution, as I mentioned before, we are a relatively young company. We basically released our first version of our solution back in 2018. We are headquartered in Boston with more than 300 employees worldwide. We do have offices in Chicago and in Austin. And one of the core aspects of our company is our engineering team, right? Because although our company is young, our engineers are heavily experienced. These engineers and engineering architects and engineering directors, they have almost like 20 plus years of experience in developing data protection solutions for several blue chip companies. Unfortunately, I cannot name those solutions due to contractual and legal obligations, but these, having that said, these engineers know what they're doing, and we basically have decided to come up with our own brand, our own solution, and that's how Hycu was born. And our goal is to basically deliver a seamless multi-cloud data protection solution that is basically built to protect all of your on-prem workloads, all of your cloud workloads, and even your SaaS applications, right? The goal here is to ensure that, we really don't care where your workloads run, be it on a public cloud or be it a SaaS or be it on-prem. We will be able to deliver a single pane of glass, seamless, user interface that actually provides you the ability to protect all of your workloads in an extremely easy, in an extremely intuitive and an easy manner. And we do have a growing global presence. We do have more than 3,000 plus 3,100 plus customers spread across the globe over 75 plus countries. And this number is growing by the day. And as I pointed out before, this is probably one of the best times for me to work at Hycu, and I'm really fortunate for that. Okay, so when we talk to our customers, before I introduce about the product, I just wanted to just talk about some of the burning use cases or some of the concerns that our customers have always asked us. And it's because of the answers that we have provided for these questions that has basically, that has sold these customers with our solution. And that's exactly why they not only have purchased our solution, but they also love our solution and love our customer service. Right? The first thing that they always wonder, especially when it comes to a hybrid cloud environment, let's say a customer with a sizable VMware and workloads running on Google or Azure or AWS, one of the key questions that they ask us is our solution, or is any given data protection solution, how easy it is, or how much time am I supposed to spend for deployment, maintenance, upgrades, all that kind of stuff, right? Because especially when it comes to on-prem and when it comes to contemporary backup vendors, this can be an extremely time-consuming exercise. And when not done right, this could pose huge problems in the long run. And speaking of doing things right, it also comes down to scalability, because when you're designing a, at least back in the, when you're trying to, design legacy or backup infrastructures, you basically have to right size these infrastructures or even backup appliances. Because if you don't right size them, again, you're going to have huge issues in the long run, because sizing is going to be one of the key aspects when it comes to having your backup infrastructure up and running smoothly forever, right? So how easy it is for you, or how easy it is for a backup solution to be sized to expect the right set of, or to based on the growth that is expected by the customer, and how long does that sizing last, and how often am I supposed to resize my application to ensure that I'm not going to have any issues with my backups or restores or migrations. The third question is, how resilient am I from ransomware attacks? Now, let's face it, this is a sad truth. Ransomware attacks have become so common. No organization or no vertical is secure from it. There used to be a time where financial organizations and healthcare organizations used to be targeted by ransomware, but in this day and age, any organization is susceptible for a ransomware attack. So the question is, how resilient is your organization, especially when it comes to an unforeseen ransomware attack? How easy is it for an organization to recover from such an attack? And as I pointed out before, the fourth question that customers always ask us is, remember when I mentioned that when a customer moves to a public cloud environment, it's a huge investment. The question is, how well an existing solution is able to leverage that existing platform? How well is it able to integrate with that platform, right? Am I reinventing the wheel by basically deploying an appliance on cloud, or am I reinventing the wheel by basically reinstalling new set of VMs for my backup infrastructure, or am I able to seamlessly use my public cloud infrastructure to deliver a seamless experience when it comes to performance, usability, and cost efficiency? And speaking of cost efficiency, what is the overall total cost of ownership, especially when you're on public cloud? Because you always need to keep a tight eye when it comes to resource utilization. So these are some of the common questions that the customers always ask us, and this is exactly how we answer, right? So when it comes to deployment, maintenance, and upgrades, our solution is purely delivered as a service on Google Cloud, on Azure, and on AWS. Meaning that all you would have to do is basically go to the respective vendor's marketplace and click on the subscribe button, and that's it. Your solution gets deployed instantaneously, and you don't have to worry about a thing. And speaking of delivering our solution as a service, we basically have a full-fledged microservices architecture that actually has the ability to scale up or scale down based on your customers or based on the size of your environment. So for instance, let's say you have an environment on Google Cloud starting with 100 VMs, and over a period of 6 months, you're basically going to have an environment size to 250 VMs. Am I supposed to resize my backup infrastructure? Absolutely not. With Hycu, we'll be able to automatically expand or shrink based on your environment size on real time. And our solution on 3 clouds is basically designed to deliver air-gapped, isolated backups, right? So what I mean by that is, we can deliver backups directly to your object storage that could be on a totally different project on Google Cloud or a different region within Google Cloud. Similarly, it could be a different resource group or a different region within your Azure or your AWS environment. And on top of it, the coolest feature of all is we have the ability to leverage the respective cloud storage worm functionality for immutable backups, meaning that once these backups are written to the object storage, there's no way you can delete those backups until the worm feature expires or the worm expiration is reached. So once you lock the worm policy on your object storage, your backups are retained until your expiration time. And the fourth point that I wanted to talk about is we are purpose-built for every platform. We are basically built from ground up for Google Cloud, Azure, and AWS. The reason why I keep saying that is because it's not like a checkbox style approach that we take where we basically have an existing architecture and we simply add support. No, we basically evaluate every cloud's available APIs and we basically build a solution from ground up, and we ensure that this solution is fully integrated with every cloud vendor. And last but not the least, our solution is so well integrated. And when we do backups to object storage, we basically deliver deduped incremental forever backups to already cost-efficient object storage with auto tiering capabilities, meaning that you can leverage all of your object tiers, standard, nearline, cold line, archive tiers across all of the three public cloud vendors to ensure that your backups are not just high performance, but also extremely, extremely cost efficient. And given the fact that we deliver a microservices architecture, we don't need any extra appliances or hardware appliances or software that needs to be deployed within your cloud infrastructure. We basically make use of spot instances to do backups and restores that are created on demand. And this ensures that the overall TCO is extremely low when you invest in our Hycu solution for your public cloud workloads. So I know I've talked a lot about how our solution works on a high level, but I wanted to give some live examples about some case studies. This is one of our, I mean, obviously you cannot share the names of these customers, but at least I can give you a pretty clear picture of where these customers come from and what their situation was before they looked into, before they invested in our solution and where they are right now. So the first company is a healthcare, software and services company with more than 500 million per year revenue. And they had this huge challenge, right? When they reached out to us, they were basically in the process of moving their on-prem workloads to Google Cloud. And they wanted to retain a very, I would say 10 to 15% or maybe 20% of their workloads on within their on-prem infrastructure. So they had the following challenges, right? Since majority of their workloads are on Google Cloud, they had to use local Google Cloud snapshots. They had to use their own scripting. And on top of it, they had an extremely lean staff, which basically had to maintain their on-prem and their public cloud infrastructure, which means they wanted to focus on high-value tasks, but they were continuously bogged down by data protection SLAs and by data protection requirements. Because obviously, I mean, it's a healthcare company, which means they're going to have an extremely stringent compliance requirements. And enter Hycu, because we basically delivered a native solution that was able to protect all of their workloads running on their GCE and GKE environment. We were able to provide them a centralized backup strategy by storing all of their backups in one siloed location. And we were also able to save tons of money, especially when it comes to leveraging backups on cost-efficient object storage versus native snapshots that are retained for a long time in production environment. And the overall operational simplicity, because of our simple and extremely easy to use user interface, was basically a win-win for this customer. So right now, they're basically in the middle of expanding their workloads within the Google Cloud environment, but they're a very happy customer. And this is the reason why I wanted to point this first case study. The second case study is also another healthcare company, but more than a healthcare company, they were basically into manufacturing healthcare, medical devices, and they had a pretty similar to similar requirements or similar challenges to the previous case study. But they also had a requirement to not just invest in Google Cloud, but they also wanted to migrate their workloads on Azure. So they wanted to have this multi-cloud, elastic data protection solution. And the challenges were quite similar, right? I mean, they were, again, having too much pain in maintaining or basically working with the native snapshotting technology. And they basically had to work with multiple siloed products with different user interfaces. And again, the staff was extremely lean and they had extremely stringent compliance requirements. And with this customer, they basically noticed 2x the times of savings because they were using way too many amount of snapshots. And they were really happy with our air-gapped and immutable backup strategy, where we were able to, fully silo their backups to a different project within their Google Cloud environment. And the fact that we also deliver multi-cloud support on Azure and now on AWS basically helped them to have this peace of mind that they actually are investing in a future-proof solution, because they're not just limited to one vendor. They wanted to invest in some in a different cloud vendor. We will always be there to support them. The last case study that I wanted to talk about is basically two customers, but they have extremely similar workloads. Now, these customers are on-prem customers, and they basically wanted to leverage a public cloud infrastructure, namely Azure, as their DR target. So they didn't want to basically invest in a full-fledged on-prem DR target. They basically wanted to invest in a public cloud infrastructure and leverage that as a DR target. And I mean, it wasn't an easy POC, by the way. I mean, we were basically going through constant cost analysis, the amount of workloads that would have to be failed over, what are the DR testing strategies. And there was this constant back and forth between whether should I invest in an on-prem infrastructure or should I leverage cloud? Because the biggest advantage here is when you invest in an on-prem infrastructure for a DR target, it's going to be a capital expenditure. It's going to be like more than a seven, it's going to be a seven-figure price tag. But with public cloud, you don't have to pay anything up front, right? You're only going to pay when you fail over your on-prem workloads to the Google Cloud. And that is exactly what we delivered, right? We were basically able to help these customers to leverage the Azure cloud as a DR target, where we basically perform backups directly to Azure Blob. So Azure Blob in itself is cost efficient when it comes to storing backups as opposed to storing backups within your on-prem infrastructure. And the fact that our UI was so simple and easy, our customers were able to get started instantaneously. And it was also tightly coupled with our customer support. I mean, one of the things that I want to point out is we have an NPS score of 91 plus, and we also helped customers not only as a part of an onboarding process, but also during the POCs, which actually gains us that high reputation. So that was a quick overview about our case studies about helping customers across. So I just, Ron, I just wanted to check how am I doing on time?
Yeah, we've got about only 1 minute left. So if you quickly summarize these capabilities, then we can move on to Advet.
Sure. So just to showcase the fact, I mean, from an architectural standpoint, it really doesn't matter where your workloads are being hosted, on-prem or any public cloud vendor. The amount of time it takes for us to deploy a simple solution within your on-prem infrastructure and subscribe to a service within Google Cloud, Azure, or AWS is going to be extremely simple, because all you would have to do is basically reach out to our marketplace and subscribe, and that's it. And we actually have the Hycu Protege console that actually delivers you a single pane of glass, regardless of where your workloads are hosted. So to summarize, we fully deliver our solution as a service on AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. You can basically go to our, to the respective vendors marketplace and instantaneously subscribe to our solution, and we will be able to deploy everything automatically, which means you don't need any upgrades or installation. And even the bill, as far as billing is concerned, our Hycu monthly bill is a simple line item within your, AWS or Azure or Google's monthly bill. We are purpose built from the ground up, meaning that we have the ability to integrate with every cloud platform. We leverage all of your snapshots in the most cost-efficient manner. We fully inherit all of your security policies that are defined within your cloud, be it identity access management within your Google Cloud or Active Directory within your Azure. And we basically leverage all or inherit all of the projects and resource groups, and we do backups directly to object storage. And by doing this, we basically deliver an ultimate easy to use solution that delivers data protection, data migration, and disaster recovery on workloads, regardless of where you want to run. So I know I've talked a lot. It's a short time, so I'm sorry.
That was great. And this is where it's like to hear this, where you've got links to try out the products, see how it works,